Raquel. It's so wonderful to be having this conversation with you today.
Oh, it's wonderful to see your face.
I
We've
know.
had a chance to talk a little bit offline, but it's really great to be connected with you right now. What was it that made you want to write a story around equity, around embracing equity?
You know, we always have stories within us. And I've grown up in an African culture where storytelling basically is the thread and the fabric of our life and our ecosystem. And one of the greatest things about telling stories is that it resonates with others. It also is reflective for ourselves. And I felt that given the journey that I've had up until this point, when this opportunity came about with Keynote Women's Speakers Directory, I sort of grabbed the opportunity and I said, no, this is an opportunity to tell a story. And I loved the theme of embracing equity because I'm so passionate in terms of female development and gender equality and all of these key fundamental things that we should have already gotten right, but we quite haven't. What is intentional listening?
That's a good question. And listening is so multi-layered and multi-dimensional. There's so many aspects of listening, and there's a lot of different ways to listen. And so when we go into a situation, to really consider what is the intention here in this moment. Is it to build trust? Is it to help that person think more clearly for themselves? Is it so that I can facilitate the team to connect and work well together? So being very intentional in that moment. And when something's not working and you notice there's like tension or triggers in your body, and take a deep breath, pause, and know that just by being present, shifting back into curiosity where you're neutralizing yourself and being able to not force things, but to see what the pull is will make all the difference in the world, and to restart again in order to connect with the people, the person in the room.
I really, really like that. And you know, what's actually standing out for me is that curiosity that you've just spoken about, because my journey has actually been one of curiosity.
You know, when you talk about curiosity, I noticed that when I was reading through your chapter, that is a thread that pops up among other things. When you think about, you said the curiosity and the inner work, what does that mean, and how does that connect with the work that you do in communication?
I find now that when I'm communicating with the outer world, I'm navigating it with curiosity again through questioning and inquiry. It makes me think a little bit of Alice in Wonderland, you know, where she says, "Curiouser, curiouser." That's kind of me. I'm curious. I want to know more. I want to scratch that superficiality, and I want that grittier realism. And I find that people build rapport with you as a result. There's a quickening of the trust, because people know when you're being genuine and when there's genuine interest. And I think they start to open up, and you learn just so much more through that. What do you think?
So I hear you saying there's that curiosity where you're really listening to yourself, but in that process, at the same time that you're navigating the outside. And I know that in your chapter, the story is that curiosity, it wasn't always easy. It isn't always easy. In fact, because we're challenging our own belief system and our own biases, and the willingness to potentially change our thought identity, even our thoughts about ourselves, and how that impacts the people around us.
Absolutely, Raquel. And you know, when you think of your journey, that reflective piece that you're talking about, I mean, how do you see your journey towards embracing equity thus far?
A little bit later in my journey, after where I moved to Germany, and I couldn't speak the language. I had to navigate life and work with limitations that I didn't have before. And so those limitations and navigating, I mean, eventually I learned the language, but still there was limitations being from another culture, not understanding the rules fully, doing things different, always being different. I still make mistakes all the time. But navigating that makes me now even more aware that not everybody has the same resources and ability to get the same things done, and that some of us need different types of support and different needs. And so paying attention to that is really important in terms of equity.
I have to agree with you. For me, it does come down, Raquel, to ensuring that it's a conversation, that it's never one-sided. And I feel, I feel bad for you that, in those instances where you are being misunderstood, that there clearly wasn't a conversation happening there, because somebody should have then sort of stopped and said, okay, maybe I'm not understanding you correctly. Like, just that pause would have been so helpful in terms of your growth and journey and feeling more of that belonging, I suppose.
The more that we can have these conversations and just a pause every so often, slow the pace down just a bit, will make all the difference.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that we actually do need that pause to even just audit our biases a little bit, to help understand what are these blind spots potentially, and how am I showing up? And I know, one of the key things that you talk about in terms of intentional listening is that external sort of view to it as well, Raquel. How does that sort of incorporate then that fuller view around listening and showing up and biases and all of that?
Let's just put it this way. We can do a lot of self-reflection by ourselves, but we can't do it all by ourselves. We need other people to listen to us without judgment, asking us open questions, being curious, not for the sake of their needs, but for speakers' needs. We need someone to really listen to us in that way. And then through that process, we are able to listen to ourselves even more. So we need each other to be able to listen to ourselves and to be able to change. So having your team of people who can listen to you, and the person who listens to you may not be the person that you're listening to. So just to be aware of that. So that would be one important thing that can support us on our journeys of self-reflection and moving towards a world of more equity. If you had one last, tidbit to share with our audience before we finish our conversation, what would that be?
Little habits and little changes to habits that will actually make big impact in our lives and in the lives of people around us. So I want to leave everyone with that thought.